watching y'all file in. This is always a great time to test comments and questions too. So if you are joining us for your lunch today, which I am certain many of you are, throw what you're eating in the comment box and we can make sure that that's all working. Some great faces and names showing up. A latte, I liked that answer. Nice. Oh, hi, Jenny from Eastman Tourism. I see a couple folks from the US too. Dana's here. That's awesome. JoAnne, you got like a North American wide audience today.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm just a little nervous.
Just putting Cochrane on the map this afternoon.
Okay. Well, I got some exciting things to share for sure.
Give everyone one more minute. Oh, I love this, Allison. You're having your afternoon snacks out in Nova Scotia. Of course you are. I would like some afternoon snacks right now too, if I'm being honest. All right. Beef stew, cherry, excellent. I love that. Sounds very healthy, warm. Great. Okay, well, I'm gonna kick things off and get started. A few of you will still continue to pop in, which is great. I know a couple of you had sent me an email, but I'm actually looking at names here. Chris, I see you're in, so that link worked, which is great. One more shout out, Sandra's eating her leftover lasagna. That's just also sounds delicious. For those of you that don't know me, I am Christina Pilarski. I am the founder and CEO of CIPR Communications. And many of you know by now, there's a lot of repeat webinar listeners on the line, but my passion has been tourism for a long time. I started off in the Alberta government with the Ministry of Tourism, doing some incredible things with Cindy 80, and I'm so thankful for my time there. And yeah, then started this company, CIPR Communications, and we've had the privilege of working with a ton of different DMOs, tourism operators, and a place I love. It kind of melds, I feel like, my government and my communication side is this kind of local advocacy and firing up our local champions to really support our community. And so with that, I'm thrilled to have JoAnne join me today for a little fireside chat.
Well, thanks for having me, Christina.
No problem. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you and a little bit about Tourism Cochrane?
Okay, well, first of all, it's actually Cochrane Tourism.
I always get that wrong, don't I?
Well, and I will explain. So the Cochrane Tourism Association in Cochrane, Alberta has been around for about 13 years. I came on board as the executive director 3 years ago, but just this summer with the changes that happened in Ontario, Cochrane Ontario has now a tourism association. So we're Cochrane Tourism and they're Tourism Cochrane. So, because we have the same name. And they have a polar bear and we don't.
There you go.
I took this role on about 3 years ago. My background is not in tourism. My background is in business development and strategic planning for small business. But tourism is a business, like it's just like any other business. And so I came on board really to help the tourism board in 2007 with a strategy because they didn't really have one. And it was supposed to be a 3-month part-time contract, and it's 3 years later, and I've been blowing up the scene. So, so I have lots to tell you, depending on where you want to go with this.
Yeah, I mean, strategy is always a place that's so interesting to me because I think, especially when you have a marketing background, you tend to like just go tactics right away and you start implementing. So maybe walk us through that. What was that kind of bringing the organization into strategy for the first time like?
Well, so like anything, it was why Cochrane? Like, why would anyone come to Cochrane? And so if this is just like, why do you do business? And so this was about what was different about Cochrane. And so I did contract with a company to help us go through the whole process. And we started actually with the residents of Cochrane because they live here. They can tell us what's great about Cochrane. And so I do have some things that I can share with you from that. So we started with the residents of Cochrane. Let me just see if I can figure this out.
I love that as you're looking. So I think about Tourism Kamloops, and it was very similar when we started the engagement with them. It's almost going on 6 years. It was like, let's just see what the locals think first. And I think we forget about that step.
Yeah. Well, you have to, because you have to engage the locals, because if they don't buy into what you're talking about, then they're not going to tell anybody else either. And so this was, we ran a survey for 4 months in 2018. And this is what the locals said to us. So we had over 500 people do the survey. It was a long question survey. 71% was completion, which is usually doesn't happen. So they were engaged. They wanted to tell us what happened. And so they talked about, we asked them if they valued tourism, and it was a 97% yes.
Yeah.
And then they gave us some examples, right, of what that meant to them. We asked them about what was the most important thing to promote. And so this gives us some marching orders, right? What would they recommend to visitors? So these were some of the big words that, our pathways are amazing. We have great riverfront access. And then, what about the events? And so they talked about the events, and they talked about our history. And so you can see that we got this data from them. And that was very helpful for us to start the whole process of branding. From that, we asked a group of residents to sit on a committee. So we had a branding development group, and we had 10 people who came on board with us, and they worked with us. They put hundreds of hours in over a time period. And with them, we went out and showed them, because some of them had been here for 30 years and they didn't even know it was in their backyard. So we did some fam tours with them, and what came out of that was our brand strategy. And that is what was implemented in 2019. So we had the strategy, we had a brand, and now we knew kind of what we needed to do with Cochrane. And so bringing it back to the board needed to create priorities. What were our priorities? What were the objectives? And so for the Tourism Association, I can share this with you as well.
Yeah, I see a comment that popped up. Love the locals fam tour. And I love this too, JoAnne. We've talked about this before, but many of you on the call have heard me talk about that community of champions. And it's like, what a better way to start to engage your locals than by actually getting them out to experience things they don't even know are there.
It is pretty amazing, because when you start playing in your backyard, like people just say, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this was a thing. So all right, sorry.
Oh, don't worry. I feel like it's always valuable to see how that sausage is made. So it's important. We did, so as you're peeking too, tying it back to a few of the other communities we've worked with, right? Like we instigated this through different ways, right? Like right now, Kamloops has their passport program. So it's, a less kind of direct touch, but encouraging people to do things. I know there's been lots of communities that have done the bus tour, get on a bus, have it hosted by your destination, and start to share that way. But there are so many interesting ways to engage locals in the tourism scene.
So yeah, this was just a little bit about Cochrane and who we are. And the board came up with, this was for our 2019. And so we had 7 priorities that the board chose. to work on for the 2020 year. So what that does is it gives the organization direction, right? We know what, from where, and how, and now we have a plan to move that forward. And so most of these things are things that we've been working on, and they have been evolved. And so, as I think that was one of your first questions, is where were you and how has it evolved?
Yeah.
So we were pretty excited about spring of 2020. We had all these great programs that were ready to launch, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
Boom. And so I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but because then we had to pivot, right? And what did that look like? So that kind of gives you a little background about where we were in 2017 and where we are today, with a plan and a strategy and a team to work that forward. And so COVID hit.
Yeah. I mean, and I often talk about, like, there was almost a mourning period, right? Like, we all had to mourn this, like this spring that could have been, right? And I feel like so many tourism associations especially had all of these really great plans, like things were coming together. So how did you pivot, and how did that foundation you laid in 2019 allow you to be successful in the pivot?
So what was really key is exactly what we talked about, is engaging the locals. So this gave us the opportunity to spin it around and really focus on our residents and our local market, because we talk about that, but we kind of have done a little bit of that, but now we had the opportunity to just go in full bore. And so our business community really needed help. The town, so tourism works very closely with business development in the town of Cochrane. And we created a recovery task force for the town. And so that recovery task force had several different organizations, including the chamber and tourism and business development. And we immediately went to work on, okay, what do we need to do to make this happen? How can we help the business community either survive, get back to business, et cetera? And so through brainstorming in that organization, the first thing we did was we, of course, being on a ton of webinars with Tourism Destination Canada and all those places, those stats from the consumer sentiment were really important, right? We had to listen, like, same thing, right? You still had to listen to it. So we needed to come up with a way for people to feel safe when they came back. And so we launched in May an Open and Safe campaign. And so we got our local business community to pledge that they would follow the rules. And we have stickers on the outside of the buildings so that people know that, you know, they're doing things that they need to keep their customers and their staff safe. And it's fantastic. They're all over town. And so whether you're a local or a visitor, you'll see the Open and Safe campaign stickers, you know, proud, welcoming Cochrane back. And so that was step number one, which was making sure people were comfortable going into the businesses and making sure the businesses knew what they needed to do to be prepared for that. So there was lots of training. We did lots of communication, like a weekly Slack call, just to keep businesses up to date on what was happening. So because it was happening so quickly, we had a one-stop area where any of us could, like chamber, business development, we could drop stuff in there that would help for, you know, funding for PPE, where to get this, how to get that. And so that was a great starting point, and the businesses really felt like they were heard, and that gave the consumer confidence to come back to visit them and get that going. So that was wonderful.
Yeah. And, you know, how do you think, this is maybe a double-edged sword question, but had COVID not happened, how different are the tactics that you were going to implement versus the ones that you did? Like, I feel like sentiment was probably the same in terms of that local community piece, but how big of a departure was it?
Um, I would say it really let us focus in on the locals
Yeah,
rather than, so the visitors now are kind of right out of the scenario. And we always talked about an ambassador program of some kind.
yeah,
And so having the locals understand what's here and really sharing it with them. And so that's the next thing that we did, which I'll talk about.
yeah,
That piece of it has really, I think, created some great ambassadors for Cochrane, because they're here. They stayed here. They went biking, they went hiking, they stayed at home, and they got to, go see the art and come to the art gallery and stop in at the local shops and buy local. And there's a real community support going on for that. And I think these two campaigns have really helped with that. So it kind of helped us to build that advocacy with it. It was always in mind, but it really actually made us do it.
no, it's funny
Does that
because
make sense?
it's Brad from our team. So many of you have worked with him. He lives in Cochrane. And I remember at one point it was, I think it was summertime. So we'd all been kind of quarantined, locked up for a bit. And we were going to travel, visit a client. And he said to me, "This is my first time out of Cochrane in months." And here's a guy, right? Like in his 30s, usually is coming into Calgary to do something or check out the restaurant scene or hang out with friends. And I think it's true. I'm speaking for him now, but I think there was this kind of newfound appreciation for everything that was in his backyard that he didn't, not that he didn't ever have the chance to explore, but just wasn't top of mind for him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think everybody has had a little bit of a paradigm shift in that regard. Even the local business community, they actually could slow down and actually take a look at what they were doing and where they needed to pivot to survive. And some of them did and did an amazing job, and others didn't, and they're no longer open, right? So we see that in the business community, and we just wanted to do everything we could to support our local community, our business community, for sure. Because if they're not here, then tourism doesn't exist when the visitors come back.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Okay, so walk us through kind of that next phase, like that. What were you doing to engage those locals?
So then we, of course, we're very fortunate. We applied for Travel Alberta funding. This year, Travel Alberta, of course, is the same. It's usually a matching grant. And of course, most DMOs like Cochrane Tourism are funded through the hotels. And of course, there were no hotel stays. And so that funding kind of went away. And so, yeah, we were fortunate to have a platform where we did a summer campaign. And it was all about featuring our local business community, telling their stories. And so the tourism brand is about, it's the feeling. And if you have never been to Cochrane, when you come here, it doesn't matter if you've been here once or 100 times. It is a feeling you get when you come down that big hill. And so we talked about how our locals, their story about that. And so we did these amazing videos that we went, put out on our website and our tourism channels, telling their story. We created a weekly things to do itinerary. And it was just telling people about the local businesses or the local pathways or the bike parks. And so we had a different theme every week. And it ran from the July 29th till October the 5th. So you can check it out on the tourism website. We have a shop local page. The things to do is in transition at the moment because we have some new things coming up, but over the summer, our tourism website traffic increased by 259%.
Wow.
I don't have all the stats on our social media yet, but we were blown away by people coming to check out what they could do. We created, you talk about marketing tactics. So we created a 50 things to do differently in Cochrane. And so it was a free download. And of course, they needed to sign up for an email. And so our goal was we had 300 people on our newsletter list, and we wanted to increase it by 50 a month. And so we had 148, I think, on the last day. So we were pretty close to our target. And those people got that download list, and then they were looking at things to do, right? So that was one of the great things that happened. And I said, our locals are going, wow, I just didn't know, right? That look at all these great things you can do in town.
Yeah,
So,
the local search thing is huge. I was sitting on another webinar earlier this week, and they were running the stats on, okay, here's all the search volume for things like canceled trips or canceled holidays. And then, you had that spike. And then the next spike that went up was that, what can I do near me? Right?
mm-hmm.
This whole like, okay, I've been in the house for a month. What can I do that's close by?
Yeah. Yeah. And we had some like new things that popped up. We actually have new businesses that popped up. We had an art gallery collective open during COVID. That was crazy. So yeah, there were lots of really cool things that we helped to get launched and off the ground through this whole platform by being able to do some marketing through the Travel Alberta tourism dollars, for sure.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit and just uncover, and I'll remind everyone, if you have questions, throw them in, and Kaylin can kind of wave us down. But you've been working kind of lockstep with your other organizations in town, right? So chamber, municipality, that piece. How has that worked, and how have you been able to kind of keep that conversation going and moving forward?
We meet regularly. So I think the recovery task force was kind of a real vital piece to that. On that was the Rotary, it was the chamber, it was councils. We had the mayor, 2 councillors. So it was a cross section, the business network community that's in town. And so it was great to be able to brainstorm with those people. And I think that may turn into now maybe a business development advisory group, because we saw the value of it. And we were able to put some recommendations on council to really look at how we could help to stimulate the economy to get it kind of back up and running because everybody's down, right? So what can we do to make that happen? And so there was some recommendations that went to council, and one of them was a project that tourism has been working on for the last 2 years. We have an asset in town. It's the river, the Bow River, and Cochrane doesn't use it at all. And so we have been working with Surf Anywhere, and we actually have a feasibility study for a river wave park. So I can show you a picture if you want to see it.
We would love to see it. I think this speaks to obviously the whole destination development angle, but that, yes, we are in a weird time right now, but we're not in it forever. And I think that, the ability that you guys have shown to just kind of keep marching forward with some of these things, I think is important, because you're setting yourself up for that future success.
Yeah, well, with the pivot, recreation is really important. Bike shops were sold out this summer.
Wow.
And so if we have the ability to create things, which is what a destination marketing organization does, we vision it out, and then we can put these in place. And this is what creates Cochrane as no place else, right? Because we have a river that runs through Cochrane. So what can we do with that? And so this is the vision for our wave park.
Cool.
It was a recommendation from the recovery task force to go to council, and we will be presenting it to them with our 180-page feasibility study on a plan to make this happen, right? And when we're talking about recovery, projects like this cost a lot of money, but they also have huge impact on people coming into the community and making that a destination. And isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, good for you guys. I think that continued focus on just imagining what your destination can be is so crucial. And I think, because tourism has been hit so hard, I think often we're kind of in that almost that slump, right? But this visioning, I think, allows you to, charge forward a little bit stronger.
You got to get some advocacy behind it, and so that's the next thing is, people have heard about this. It's kind of been behind the scenes, and so now you talk about advocacy. Now I have a group of people that says, how can we help? How can we make this happen? Right? So Alberta Whitewater and the Alberta Surfing Association, they all want this to happen. We have the owner of Aquabatics that lives in town, and we have some national champions for surfing and for paddleboarding in town, and they will then help to build that and potentially create this as a tourism product. And that's our goal, right? Our goal for Cochrane Tourism is to create tourism products that are unique and different nowhere else. And that is how we are building that as a destination.
Totally.
Got a lot of work to do, but
it's true, but it's exciting. I see one question here around, of course, everyone always wants to know budget, Jo-Anne, but going back to kind of the tactics that you had put in place during COVID, let's give everyone some hope around, did you go and break the bank, or what did those things look like, and how was it feasible from that cost perspective?
So in regards to the campaigns that we did?
Yeah.
So the Open and Safe campaign came out of the business development budget, because of course they funneled, like, projects were stopped, so they were able to do that. So the Open and Safe campaign was about $15,000, and that included the banners and the stickers and the packages for all the businesses. It also included the development of a directory for Cochrane in general, and then some advertising, of course, like in the paper, to tell the residents that this was happening, it's open and safe, and come downtown and come back to the businesses because they are making sure that it is good for you. So that was about $15,000. The other project that we did with the campaign it was we got about $30,000 from Travel Alberta. And so that was, we created 10 videos, 2-minute videos. We created over the summer, 27 stories. So we had a writer write those stories. Of course, we did advertising in our local in our local paper. We had a weekly feature. So for 10 weeks, we ran a series of here's what you can do in town. So we did it digitally, and then we did it in print, because those are two different audiences. And so we did that. We put a small amount of advertising. We did one summer edition that went out to Okotoks and the surrounding small communities through the Rocky. So one outreach, but everything else was really local focus. And that, and we just, like I said, continue to partner and showcase our partners through that whole platform. And that's what we spent the money on. And that was our budget. Not huge, but we did a lot. It was a lot of work, just to make sure that it all flowed out every single week.
Totally. And I mean, what I've loved with working with destinations right now is the local, like, if you think about industries that have been really hit, tourism is one of them, but also the local media has been too, right? Like all those businesses that had to be shut down or, don't have the budget they used to, those are like the local media relies on them for the advertising that they're doing. So it's been nice to work with the local media as opposed to kind of these larger full-blown digital marketing campaigns, because they're so flexible and willing to kind of think outside the box, and especially when it's a local organization.
Yeah, and we also worked with, we have a new local radio station, so we worked with them as well, and that was to just really tell business stories. So every week we told a business story, and every week they did a little mini interviews so people could you could hear the business, what they were doing and how they were staying open. And so, yeah, it was really all about telling people what we were doing locally. So that was the budget.
Yeah. And it's amazing, like, as you start to think, right? Like, I was having this conversation with someone earlier this week, but that, okay, the budget's small and a lot smaller than it has been, but where can we leverage the local media side and push them? And so, in some circumstances, it's like, okay, local radio station, like in your case, we want to tell these cool business stories. How can we do that? And I know with one destination we're working with, they've actually taken those segments, so tourism talk segments, and have pulled them into a podcast. So now they're like doubling the content up. They have, they're reaching, I feel like, one of their target personas on the radio, right? That Saturday morning listener. And now they've reached another audience that's downloading a podcast and listening. And then there's content to put on the web. And it's that, like, how can you turn marketing tactics and, amp them up when the budget is small? How can we leverage them even more?
Yeah, I'm just writing that down. Sorry.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Podcast. What am I going to do with those?
Everyone is learning today.
Exactly.
I want to stick back to kind of what's coming up for you. So I know you're working on a lot of cool things as we head into winter, but walk us through that. What are you kind of hoping that will continue to differentiate you as the seasons change?
So another thing that just recently happened is Cochrane is actually launching an app. Cochrane Tourism is launching an app in partnership with business development. And the whole point of this is to promote local business and tourism in Cochrane. So I don't know if you heard, about 6 weeks ago, the app platform was announced by economic developers of Alberta.
Okay.
And so their overarching platform is called Experience Alberta. And we had been already working with this app organization. And so when they announced it, we kind of thought, okay, I think we picked the right platform. And it was supposed to be something we were going to launch for 2021. But when talking to the local businesses, they had an okay summer and they were really concerned about November and December. So they were worried about this next season. And so we bit the bullet and went, okay, let's just launch it early. So it's going to launch on Monday. And I actually have a little teaser video if you want to watch it.
Of course we do. There's definitely a few of you that I've talked to. I'm scrolling through the participant list that you're all thinking about apps right now, which I think is really cool. COVID or not, I think that's the way the kind of travel experience is really moving, right? That in your pocket, what can I do now?
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's a supported app, but hang on a second.
Nice. Cute. I love that. Oh, I've been there. I've had some ice cream there before. So fun. Awesome. And so when you think about that app, like I love that kind of sense of transporting into these destinations through the swipe of a phone. And is that like, when you think about target audiences for this and your marketing personas, how did it play into that piece?
Well, and that's a big part of it, right? Is who is the target for the app? It is the younger generation, I would say, and because they're the ones who are on their phone all the time. And they also, I think, are interested, like we've kind of watched them over this last little bit, looking at what can they do here, because they're also stuck. And so that was kind of a little bit about the app itself. Mostly the reason why we decided to do an app is because it's a platform. Everybody has a phone now. It's a really easy platform for people to look at, and it's a really easy platform for people to storytell about things. And you can use it for so many things at the moment. This platform actually, very impressed with, as I said, that's why EDA picked it up. And so we launched that teaser video like a week ago. For it, of course, marketing, we have a pre-registration, so you get the download of the app early. Oh. And in 6 days, we had 250 people sign up for the pre-registration.
Wow. That's awesome.
I didn't even look at the numbers today. So that means our locals are engaged. They're ready. They want to go try this. And, you have to have all the stuff in the back end, of course, but we see this as a way to, number one, get people to use it and shop local. It's a rewards point system. It's a way for them to actually physically get in a store, and everybody has a phone and everybody's using apps these days. So we want to jump into that market and see what happens with it.
Totally. Yeah, I know a few of I see Catherine is talking about Driftscape as an app, and I've heard this one come up with our friends in Manitoba too, are looking at that. And one question that always follows is that kind of, okay, how are you continuing to market it? Like, so what's your plan? So you did this great launch, but like, how are you going to keep the interest up?
Well, that's exactly it. When you do some research on an app, you have to have retention and you have to keep it up. And so this is where tourism actually comes into play with this, because we have seasons, right? And so it'll take some platforming, but so right now, the first event that's going to happen to launch it is Dine Out Cochrane. We have a 10-day restaurant week that's happening in November. And so you can use the app and you get extra bonus points for using the app while you take part in that event. Then we'll do a shopping event for the retail. And then in January to March, we're doing tours, winter tours. So fat biking, snowshoeing tours, hiking tours. So we're getting all those people involved to really help with the change of the season. And the app allows you to actually change the front cover and change the tips so that people know what's happening. We're able to, the reason why we want to get them on an email is to let them know when things are changing, but it really is about engagement in the people using the app.
Definitely. Kaylin, I see you went off mute. Does that mean we have a question?
There's a question. Jo-Anne, do you think you could tell us what the platform your app is on quickly?
Yes, it's called 468 Insider. But if you go to experience, like experience, not with no E on the front, Alberta, under the Economic Developers of Alberta, that is where you can sign up for the app, because the platform is being sponsored through EDA. So it's all in Canadian dollars.
Awesome. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
No, Marianne, I hope that answered it.
Oh, probably.
I love the theming that you're thinking about too. And when I am working with a reduced budget, it's often, right, like, so back to the podcast thing about, okay, we're going to leverage this in multiple places. And I think thinking about the app in that way too, I love that, okay, we're going to be talking about winter tours.
Yep.
January to March, that's what the app's going to focus on. And I imagine that's what you'll be kind of feeding through your other platforms.
Exactly. It has to go across all platforms. And so we have an explore cochrane.ca website. for information about the app. We, of course, have created a training program for all the businesses and the users. So, they need to know how to use it and what's the benefit of using it. And of course, lots of PR on it with the launch. And yeah, so it's a community thing, right? People need to know they get to use it because they get to support local, and they get to get rewarded as they're wandering around town. The other thing that helps promote something in Cochrane is we have our own Cochrane currency as well, called Cochrane dollars, and they're like $1 for every Canadian dollar. It's 1 to 1, but it can only be spent in Cochrane, and so we will be giving away, as part of the redeeming points, Cochrane dollars, which then again comes back to spending in town, so it gets spent back in town. So yeah, it's about thinking about the plan, right? We created a plan, we're executing the plan, and we're moving that forward as to transition into that online to capture some of that audience that's already doing that.
Yeah, I love that. Like, even thinking about prizing is so important. I know lots of folks are doing kind of incentivizing the social media engagement with, prizes on different days of the week, but that direct correlation back to the community, whether it's, I love Cochrane dollars, but if it's, okay, now you're going to go experience something in the community, and, how do you extend that piece? So important. It's not just like, hey, here's your bottle of wine, you win. But yeah. Right, like it's that come experience and almost the practice what you preach kind of mentality.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you have your differentiator going into winter. That's your app. As we're looking to the future, and again, uncertainty all around us, obviously, but thinking back to that strategic plan, you've kind of made the pivot. But what would be next in the ideal case scenario? What would you be working towards when it comes to kind of thinking about locals and local advocacy?
So the next steps for Cochrane Tourism is building advocacy around the Wave Park.
Right.
So those assets that can be built in town are key to setting us apart as a destination. The other thing that we're working on is we were fortunate to receive funding from the CARES grant. And over the last 2 years, we've really tried to help the business community through training, through workshops from Travel Alberta, and through it's not economic development and trade, it's like jobs, innovation, right, and employment. Don't quote me on that one.
No, it'll change again, I'm sure.
So we would bring in, those kinds of things to help the locals to understand, what was available and what was a benefit for them. And there's tourism, they're small business operators, right? So they were all excited, and then they'd go home and they'd go back to what they were doing, and they'd lose that momentum. And so we felt that we needed to work on something that could help them. And what could that be? So we actually have created a new program. It launched. This is all my new stuff. This is it's been crazy. It all, like I said, it's helping them. It just all kind of came together. We just kept charging forward on it. So it's called the Tourism Product Mentorship Program, the Tourism Product Mentorship Program. And our goal is it's a 6-month program where we take them from idea into actual implementation of a product at the end of it.
Wow.
And so we're in the pilot of it right now. It's a 2-year program. So the pilot will run, we'll kind of get all the kinks done. We'll do a run through of one application of the program. And then, our big vision goal on that is really about building rural tourism, because small communities don't have a lot of assets, and, and so to be able to help the community build unique things that are all about them through a balanced program, and we have experts coming into the program, I think it's going to be a great thing for small business to learn and to commit, and then create a new revenue source. And I think that's what we saw this year from COVID, was that they needed to pivot and change and come up with something new. And so this is just a way to do that for a tourism product.
I love that. We had talked about kind of this as I feel like it was your brainchild at the time, but I like it from that marketing perspective too, because it's like, okay, you're doing some destination development, you're helping out the community, you're providing training, but now all of a sudden you have these 10 great stories of tourism in your community that you can then kind of champion, and you'll know that story from the first drop of inspiration to kind of where they grow.
Yeah. And yeah, it's excited. They're excited. They're, it's a commitment, but it's a business commitment on their side, right? And so these are the things that we're really working on to help our locals rise above all of this.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and like kudos to you, because again, like in a challenging time, I think it's kind of go hide under the blanket, right? And you're not only visioning in terms of destination development when it comes to the wave park, but you're visioning in terms of how are we going to help sustain kind of the business owner in the tourism space too, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's some great things that have happened, and we I have a great team that is helping me with these projects, and it's exciting, in a not an exciting world right now. We're if we can bring some positivity into the world right now, and into the business community, and into our local residents that look at what's happening. I think it's really about that really is where the advocacy piece comes in, is they then are our new champions. And when the visitors come back, they're going to tell people about, wow, look at who we are. Yeah. And that, I think, is where this all ties together in all of your world.
Yeah.
And you've done it. You did it in BC, and BC does a great job of destination development. They have a lot of support there, so I'm hoping that Alberta will come to the table with some of that look and feel at some point in the future.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think about all of the things we mourned in the tourism space when COVID hit, and I think there were a lot of provinces across Canada that were really looking at, all right, tourism, this is a thing. Let's build a master plan for our province. Or I've had some conversations even in the US with some of you on the line that, what's the master plan for the state? What are some statewide initiatives? And again, there's that, okay, we're mourning this, it will be again. But that pivot in thinking locally has been really important. And I think you guys have been an excellent example of how far you can take that. And I got to go download this app. I got to get on that pre-registration list.
It's going to be fun. Dine Out Cochrane. You can, it's going to be the first 10-day event on there, and you can do the whole thing. All the menus will be on the app, and the reservation number will be on the app, and you can do everything through the app. So it's a great way to just focus in on those businesses, and they get some special love for 10 days, and the residents and the shoppers get bonus points for doing it as well.
You know what? It's so funny. And thinking of myself as like the local tourist now. So our kids went and stayed the night at Grandma and Grandpa's last weekend, which was amazing. Thank you, Grandma and Grandpa. But it was like, okay, where are we going to eat for dinner? And you start kind of Google searching, and there's this one, like, what is open and what isn't. So there's kind of that piece. And yep. Two, like, my boys are 4, so it's been a while since I've really enjoyed the restaurant scene. So there's this really overwhelming, like, all right, it's my one night out this month without the kids. What am I going to pick? And so I love the notion of like, it's all right there on the app. I know Peter was asking me last week, he's like, what are you doing? And I'm sitting on the couch, like bringing up menus and pinching and zooming going, I think we'll like this. This drink menu looks good. You're just like desperate for that. But I love that app or not, as a tourism destination, you've made it easy for someone like me who just wants to enjoy a night out in my town.
Yeah. Yeah. And combining it all together so it's an event. This actually was an event that we had planned for March 27th to April 5th. So we were 1 week away from, this was the first annual event, Dine Out Cochrane. So we were doing it for a week. And so it got canceled, of course.
Yeah.
And in talking to the business community, like the restaurants, with 50% capacity, they were worried, as I said, about November. And so we went to all of them and said, do you want us to do this? Because we can pull this back on the schedule. And they said, yeah, let's do it. And so, yeah, it's running from the 13th to the 22nd, and it'll really bring some exposure to them over those 10 days in a month that is always typically a hard month in the restaurant industry.
Ah.
So we're hoping that it can help just kind of tide them over for the season.
Totally. What's the app name again? Where can we find it? Because I see comments coming up saying, I want to look at this. I want to check it out.
So it's explorecochrane.ca is the website, and Explore Cochrane is the name of the app. And on Monday, it will be in the Google Store and the Apple Store, so you can download it. And and so you want to create an account.
I know, so hard with these backgrounds.
That doesn't work. But all the information is up on the tourism explorecochrane.ca about what the app is and what the rewards are. And then we, of course, our social media is Cochrane Tourism is our Facebook. I could put that all up there. Sorry, I didn't give you any of that information.
Oh, don't worry.
But Explore Cochrane AB, because there's two Cochranes. So
Right.
Explore Cochrane AB is our new Instagram channel specifically for the app.
Nice. And what I'll say is, keep these tactics in mind, and to go back to your destination development play on the wave. Can I call it a wave park? Is that what you guys are calling it?
Yeah, because it's not just surfing. You can do kayaking. So it's a mechanical wave. So you can do paddleboarding, surfing, kayaking, all of the above.
Nice. And, again, a lot of you sat in on when Peter and I did the session on building a community of champions. And I kind of always say, find your why. Before you're starting out on why am I building this list of people and what am I doing and what's the end game? It's this to me is such a great example of what the end game is. You have a need for some community advocacy now. You want to build something, and you've done this work. You said 150 more names on that email list. So it's 150 more people who've bought into what you're trying to build. And so I would encourage everyone, as you're thinking about value of tourism right now, think about this as an example of, okay, what's the why? Whether it's destination development, whether it's, finding other funding sources, but this is a great kind of tangible on why you would want community local advocates.
Mm-hmm. You got to be on board.
It's true. You need your supporters. Just like every tourism operator needs that, the list of reviews in their Google My Business listing. It's the tourism organization needs that list of people that they can call on and rile up when you need them to be.
Yeah, for sure. Because the 2021 is going to be an interesting year for sure. So yeah, if anybody has any funding ideas, please share.
So I'll give everyone a couple more minutes to kind of throw some questions over to us if you have them. Lots of folks kind of giving you the thumbs up and the congrats, Jo-Anne. So again, congrats to you. You guys can find Jo-Anne in many places, obviously on her website, but I know she's on LinkedIn too. And if you get in touch with us, we can help you find her for sure. And what I will say is, again, this is an awesome time to be thinking about local advocates, growing your own list, and focusing on your own hometown. So use JoAnne as your example, your inspiration for the future in terms of what you can be building, even when budgets are limited and even when there's some uncertainty around.
Mhm.
Any final thoughts, JoAnne? Any final words of wisdom for us?
Oh, just keep working. You know, I'm passionate about my community, and I want to see things happen here, and I want my businesses to survive. And I mean, everybody, when you live in your community and you love your community, you'll feel that. So just use that as, you know, people. Yeah, this was a lot of work. Like I'm not saying this was easy. We certainly put a lot of hours in this year with all of the recovery task force and just really listening to the community. But I think it's really helped us to focus on where we need to be and where we need to go.
Totally. Excellent words of wisdom. Keep working. I like it. Keep going. All right. Well, thank you guys. All of you that joined in, you will get this recording after. So hopefully in a couple hours, if not tomorrow morning, you'll see this. And again, thank you, JoAnne, for joining us and having lunch with us. And thank you to everyone who had snacks and lunch and all the things in between across Canada and the US. I appreciate all of you, and CIPR, we're rooting for everyone. So never hesitate to knock on my door. I'm always happy to pick your brain and have you pick mine. But thanks everyone. And thanks again, JoAnne.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Christina. It was fabulous. And thanks for sharing what we've done.
Anytime. Good luck.
Thanks so much.
Great. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Keep your